Good evening and welcome everyone. So excited to be here tonight and welcome to our webinar called How to Stop the Cancellation Nightmare. Dr. Bill Williams and I are going to share with you the top 3 profitability tips for 2017. In fact, I think we have more than 3. Dr. Bill, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here in rainy Atlanta, Georgia. We're getting rain. We need it too.
Oh, rain, go away from Portland, Oregon here. It's been raining and we're expecting snow tonight in the mountains.
Snow. Wow. Well,
Well,
we've had a drought down here. We've had a big drought. So
mm,
fires all over the North Georgia, Tennessee mountains. And, it's terrible down here. So we're glad to get the rain. Send more.
I'm happy to send the rain, Bill.
Well, I'm glad to be on this webinar with you tonight, Debbie.
Thank you for joining me. For those who don't know who you are, I want to just give you a little pitch here, Bill. Dr. Bill is the best-selling author of a book called Marketing the Million Dollar Practice, and it's 27 steps to follow to grow your practice $500,000 a year. Thank you, Dr. Bill, for joining us. I know you're so busy, and I really appreciate you being here tonight.
I'm glad to be here. It's a pleasure to share ideas with the whole dental profession all over across the country, even down in Australia. And I got a few listed in Europe, I hear.
Yes, we have doctors that follow us from all over the world, and specifically we are partnering this next year, 2017, with 9 dentists who will be in your 5M mastermind. And Bill, I'm having such a great time working with some of the teams already, and I will share a little bit more about what we're doing at the end of the webinar. Does that sound good?
I look forward to it. I'll be glad to share and answer any questions people might have.
Yes, I am really proud to share with the doctors that are here tonight that the guys and ladies, the dentists who have been in the mastermind during the year 2016, they have increased their practice production by $900,000 this year, over the last 12 months almost now. And I know I've been speaking to them, and they are taking off more days to enjoy life more than ever before.
That's one of the things I've always talked to doctors about is if you really want to have it made, make more money, work less hours. And if you can figure that one equation out, it's a no-brainer. Do it.
And we have put our heads together, and I know you've got some special ingredients that are helping these doctors they're producing more and working less. And then we're combining our efforts, so it's going to be an exciting year in 2017, and I'll share more about that. For the doctors who are on now, if there are any questions during the webinar, and especially at the end of the webinar, if you want more information about what we're doing, and if you see something that piques your interest and you want to know more about, you can email us at support@dentalpracticesolutions.com. We had a 4-part webinar series from September to the first day of November. Hundreds of doctors participated in that, and we put that together in a series. So if you email us, support@dentalpracticesolutions.com, we are very happy to send that series, the recording, and all the information regarding that. So let's get started with our webinar. I put together a handout, and in your email you did receive a link, and if you'll print that out and follow along, this will become your guide, your blueprint it's a system that you can start to implement tomorrow in your office to stop these cancellations. And I'm going to stop saying that word cancellations, and I'll tell you where we're going to change that to tonight. But here's a shortened link. It's the bit.ly link with November 29th, Stop Cancellations Worksheet. So let's get started. The first thing I want to ask you is, whenever you feel that you're having a challenging situation, and I know this is our biggest webinar, this is my 3rd time talking about these cancellations. I told you I was going to say that word again, and I did. I'm going to change that word now and say changes, appointment changes. What are these costing? And it's costing you a lot of headaches, I know, because we have hundreds of doctors that have joined this webinar over the last 18 months. I've done it 3 times. And I know it's causing you a headache, but I want you to ask, Why is this happening? And that's the first step to creating solutions. And the second step is congratulations for being here tonight, because we do have some solutions. In fact, I was thinking, Bill, we should probably do this again. And if you guys can type, first of all, I want to ask for everybody on the webinar, we have a lot of people joining us right now. If you'll tell us where you're from in the chat box. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and Dr. Bill's from Suwannee. We have somebody else from Georgia on the line, and if you'll type in where you're from, if you haven't done so already, please let us know where you're from, and let us know if you'd like more information. Again, at the end of this webinar, I can tell you I will not cover everything that I have as far as stopping these patients from calling to change their appointments. It's costing many hours of your front office team members, and it's costing you dollars, doctor, to have this happening. So it's important that you create your success plan and a success system. So make sure you're following along with paper and the handout so you can fill in the blanks. So we're here tonight, Dr. Bill and I, so that you can create your system starting now. And it requires a step-by-step process. So there are at least 3 things tonight that you can implement, and my goal is that you'll start with one of them, choose one of the 3 things to implement tomorrow, and then kind of map out what you can implement over the next week. So here is, let me get to the next slide here. Bill, do you
Debbie,
guys
you
have
said the magic word.
I'm sorry?
You said the magic word, and that was implement. If the doctor pick one thing to do this week and implement it, they'll be up a couple of $1,000 more in the month of December just from that one little thing they did.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what we're looking at. I wanted to put this schedule here, and I put these red arrows because this is the nightmare, the headache that doctors experience. And I had doctors over the years. I know it was a big chronic issue back during the 6, 7 years ago when we had the crisis with our economy here, worldwide actually. Doctors would call me saying, Debbie, please take a look at the hemorrhage in my schedule. And I still see this, and doctors call us from all over the United States and all over even other parts of the world because they have these holes in their schedule and they want to know what to do. So these holes cost you, they end up costing you hundreds of dollars, and let me share with you, I actually made some calculations. Let me tell you first of all what you can expect to learn over the next 45 minutes is how much these holes are costing you. I have a calculation that you can implement or do this calculation on your own. And then what you can do to reduce the appointment changes and your no-shows, and then how you can fill these holes fast. I want to just say that most doctors who talk to us, and I'm a dental hygiene department expert, they come to me because they want to get more new patients. And I look at the numbers when we start working with the client, even before we start working with our clients, we're looking at their true profit potential. And I want to say that probably most of you, at least 90% of you watching this webinar right now, 90% of you have a solid patient base, and how can you tap into that patient base you have right now and create an increase in profitability? Dr. Bill, what do you think about that? I mean, do you notice that in your practice that if you just tap into some of those patients, does your office have a lot of patients that haven't been in this year?
A lot. I mean, we have 10,000 patients in our practice, and they don't all come in every year. So we have a lot of reactivation techniques that we always want to implement. The new patients we get don't fill every need.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't live off of new patients. You have to have a good mix of the solid foundation that you talk about.
Yes, well, I worked for a dentist. It's over by Dana Point in Laguna Beach, California. Dana Point. We only had 200 patients in our database, and we worked 3 days a week, and the doctor is highly successful. We actually gave them a super bill that they billed, they sent it into their insurance company, but our patients had to pay for their own treatment, and then they were reimbursed. And he had a very successful business model. I'm no longer there because of what I'm doing today as a coach and consultant. But let's talk about what this really boils down to. Really, it's what are you offering your patients? How are you presenting your treatment to patients? How are you presenting your team, yourself, to your patients? And this is something that Dr. Bill and I work on with our doctors and their teams as we're coaching them, and Dr. Bill's doing the mastermind group with them, is your presentation. What are the words that you're saying? I just saw this movie. It was called Arrival with Amy Adams. I don't know if you guys saw my Facebook Live video that I did the other day, but these aliens came to Earth, 12 different locations on Earth, and nobody knew how to communicate with the aliens. And finally, they had Amy Adams come to work with the military in the U.S., and they introduced her to the aliens, these heptapods. And it was very scary because nobody knew what the aliens were saying, and the aliens didn't know what us humans were saying. So it was very important the way that we communicated with each other. And that movie really spoke to me because it's, you know, they were asking the aliens in the movie, what is your purpose? Why are you here on Earth? And it's like our patients coming in going, you know, we're asking them what is their purpose, but they want to know what is our purpose. Are you just there to take my money? Dr. Bill and I were chatting before the webinar, and I was telling him about some of the Yelp reviews that just happened to pop up when I was in Yelp the other day reviewing a spa, which, by the way, I'm taking my team to a spa on Friday. They're not on the webinar, but anyways, the Yelp, you know, people were giving bad reviews on these doctors because basically they didn't understand what the doctor's motives were, and they thought the doctor was just taking their money. And this is a big reason why they're not coming back to the office, is because they don't understand you. So how are you presenting yourself to the patients? And what are you saying? What are the words? What does your office smell like? When you read Dr. Bill's book, he talks about the smells in your office and how to get that to smell inviting. Here's what I mapped out as the cost for you when you have a cancellation. Now, I highly recommend that doctors, and what we're working with are doctors who want to be highly productive, and we work with doctors that have at least a minimum production of $6,000 a day, and I share with hygienists how to produce at least $2,200 a day for the team. This would be a good goal for you to have if you don't have that goal already. Now, if this means that the doctor's producing $825 an hour and the hygienist $275 an hour. If you have one patient not show up that day, how much do you think that really how much do you think it really costs them when that happens? Somebody didn't show up on your schedule today. What does that cost you? You were talking to me about your schedule today, Bill. That's a huge deficit for you.
Yeah, I think if I miss a patient, you know, they don't all get the same thing, of course, but it's at least $1,000 if somebody didn't show up. That's a lot more than the cost of some supply or the cost of an employee's working a few hours overtime, isn't it? One patient appointment. You know, I'm doing about $15,000 a day on average, and so if there's one patient missing, that might be a $3,000 or $4,000 appointment. If they break a big appointment, that's terrible, and we want to avoid those kind of things.
And we're going to dive into that in just about 20 minutes. I'll be sharing with you what to do when those patients call to change their appointment. But hang on just a minute here, because look, there's a hole in the doctor's schedule and a hole in the hygienist's schedule, and hopefully 70 to 80% of all your treatment planning is coming from your hygiene schedule. So it's more than just if a hygiene patient, and by the way, Bill, you know, some of our clients in the 5M Mastermind that are working with me already, they're sending in, you know, I'm getting feedback from the team members, and I'm asking them, how many openings do you think are in the schedule each day? And it's all over the board from the same people in the same office. It's very interesting. And one of the assistants wrote that she thinks they have about 2 openings each day. And so it's not just that it's costing $275 2 times, $550. No, those patients probably had a treatment plan that was closer to $500, maybe even $1,000 or $3,000 if they're getting implants. So it's thousands of dollars each day. And in this scenario here, it's $1,100 that doctor lost just in the scheduled production, not even what could have been diagnosed from the hygiene appointment. And if you're working 200 days a year, which when I first start working with a client, they're usually working more than 200 days, but just say you're at 200 days, that's over $200,000. And I just did a profit potential for an office over in Miami, Florida, and just alone counting up the hygiene appointments where we had openings in the hygiene schedule was $250,000. And I'm sure there are people on this webinar today that are in the same situation. So what does your life look like? How is it different if you're not dealing with this on a daily basis? And if you'll just respond to us, you can let me know privately. I mean, what is the change? I mean, hopefully you're able to pay your bills, but on your handout, I put some things to circle. I mean, can your child go to a private school? Can you pay for the USC, the university where I went? It costs at least $100,000 a year if you're in dental school there now. How is your life different? If we can make this change for you, if you can implement one thing after this webinar, I know for sure something will change. I'm going to give you a lot of different ideas to implement. Here's the one thing. You've got to change your of appointment system. We're no longer calling it a cancellation, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But you want to make sure that you have a change of appointment system, and the team needs to know about it, and they need to know what is included in that, as well as the patients need to know. And the majority of time when I'm talking to doctors, they're telling me, no. They're like, I can feel that their heads between their knees saying, no, we don't have that in writing. And I want to say I found this quote because what you teach people, how you teach people to treat you, what you will allow, and what you will, what you stop allowing, and what you reinforce with the people that surround you, that is what's going to come back to you tenfold. So if you're allowing people to change their appointment last minute, they're going to keep doing it. I'm sure your patient...
Sounds like good parenting advice, too.
It is. I was thinking about that when I was putting this together. I mean, we're setting an example for our patients, and yet, I mean, they mean well, and they seriously probably don't know that they can't call today to say they can't come tomorrow. I was in an office as a consultant years ago, and it happened that a patient called to change their appointment that day. They said, I can't get in because I have to go get my hair cut. True story, Bill. So what do you have in place today? Do you have a change of appointment policy? Now, I'm not giving you a change of appointment policy, but you can email us at support@dentalpracticesolutions.com, and I will give you an example of what we have available. I'm happy to give that policy to you. But all these different areas of your practice, your recare system, how your new patient system is in place, they all have moving parts, and you need to work on each one of these systems, map it out with your team so that everybody knows their role in that. For example, I do a lot of training on growing your practice and eliminating these last-minute changes. I do private webinars with offices on this. And we have it's a plan of action sheet where everybody on the team knows what their role is and by what date they need to have that completed by. So somebody in your office, if you don't have a change of appointment policy, somebody will be in charge of emailing our office. We'll give you that. Then they need to get that printed up with your logo, your information, and they need to make sure that all the patients see that change of appointment policy, and it gets put into their chart, into their patient record. And it needs to be updated just like their medical history. Bill, are you guys doing that at your office? I mean, can you relate to that?
We are, and you know, you brought up something that was a really key point, is that you got to put systems in place, and everybody has their expertise of what they teach. And so tonight we're learning one of the key techniques that Debbie teaches because it's so effective and it's so needed. Everybody in dentistry needs a system to stop the cancellations, the broken appointments, because that is, number one, the biggest loss item that you have in your practice. If you're a dentist prepared to treat and the people don't show up, it is the biggest kick in the butt that there is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most dentists agree that that's the one thing of all things that they'd like to cut out.
Yeah. And it can happen. I think it's a communication tool that the patients, and giving the patients a break, they probably just don't know any different. Nobody told them that they can't do that. And so getting it straight from the very beginning. And by the way, before we move on to this next topic, I wanted to say that it's really important that you not only have a team-driven practice where the team is actually implementing these different steps and you have people assigned to different tasks, but that you mark it, that you have an expectation of what date they're to complete that, and then it's checked off, like your office manager is in charge of that plan of action form, and it's checked off when it's completed. And then you'll have your team meeting, and you're saying, thank you very much, Susan, great. Thank you for finishing that up, because now we have the form in place and people are signing it. We're not getting as many calls. This is one of the examples of a system that I have implemented for our teams, and it's a time management. I call it my down to a science time management formula, and it's a system for the preventive patients who have a 60-minute hygiene appointment. So this is one of the systems where I have broken it down into 4 different areas, and we map out exactly what's happening. In data collection, it's not just the hygienist. There's some other moving parts. There's the assistant, and the assistant needs to know what is their role in the data collection. Treatment planning and the presentation of the treatment. There's a whole process, and there are actually some key phrases, key words, and we break that down into a science, so it just becomes like the back of your hand what it looks like, exactly what's happening, and it just flows. And then about halfway into that hygiene appointment of 60 minutes, in that system, everybody on the team can look at the clock and say, oh, it's halfway into the hygiene appointment. Looks like doctor can now do an exam in the hygiene room, because that patient is set up to accept treatment when doctor comes in and confirms diagnosis. Does that make sense? What do you think of that, Bill?
Yeah, I have a story to relate to that. I've got a 4-doctor practice, and I'm the old guy that's been there for a long time, started the practice, and I've brought in associates over the years, and I've always noticed that the young guys particularly want to wait to the end of the appointment to come into the hygiene room and check the patient when the hygienist is done. But the smart dentists are the ones who come in when they're ready, somewhere in that green section, that 20-minute section,
Mm-hmm.
where the patient is ready for for you to see them, not at the very end of the appointment, which will happen. It'll keep you running late.
Yeah.
So this system is really good to keep the practice running smoothly and on time, when the doctor can pop in at the most convenient time in a 20-minute span.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mapped it all out. You can look through our blogs on dentalpracticesolutions.com. It's in the blogs, and it's one of our free references. It's a no-cost references, this as well. But when we're talking about these systems, in particular, this change of appointment system, I want to tell you, who do you think is the worst offender. Can you guess, Bill, who's the worst offender of this system? I think we lost
Are you
Bill.
asking,
Oh.
are you asking me?
Yeah, I was. Who do you think? I'm asking you. I'm putting you on the spot. Who do you think is the worst offender of this the change of appointment policy?
Probably other doctors.
You know it is. When I talk to the doctors, they say to me, Debbie, do I really need to do this? I mean, I feel bad charging them $50 if they don't show up. Well, you don't have to
Yeah.
do it on the first time, but you've got those repeat offenders. You know who they are, right?
Yeah, if they don't want to, if you don't want to keep giving away your money to people, just don't charge them. I mean, there's a big argument out there about charging or not charging, but you know, the repeat offenders need to be dealt with.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But, you know, the other number two is that you've got to track your numbers daily. You've got to have somebody, you know, Bill and I are both really big advocates for starting the day out. And it's just 10 minutes with your team. And there are numbers. You start out by looking at your numbers. Bill, you and I were talking about this in a private conversation yesterday. It's very important to look at your numbers and know where you're headed. You know, are you $800 short on November 1st, one of our offices was $800 short on their production goal for the month of November. And by the time we sat down and mapped this out, they actually ended up $1,300 above the daily goal because they looked at the numbers and then everybody had a role in the system for the team huddle of how to close the gap for the number not being where it needed to be. So it's really important to know your numbers, and then if you know that the numbers don't look good, that's why you're on this webinar tonight, is because you know that there's a broken system for your change of appointment policy. You got to tweak this system so you can meet your goals.
When I started to do this kind of a tweaking thing in our practice and started learning more about the KPI systems, that's really when we started to grow the most. We were steadily growing, but you know, it was harder and harder to keep growing. And when we started doing the KPIs, that was one of the biggest upticks we had. When every staff member knew the number, the goals, and they knew what was the expected amount to reach every day, and everybody wanted to reach the goal, and we had a reason for reaching it because there was, you know, bonuses and good things to happen. When we all reached the goal, it was an amazing change in the whole atmosphere of the office. So I would encourage any doctor who's not really high on KPIs and measuring, uh, change your attitude about that, and you'll see a big uptick in your profitability.
Absolutely. One of the things that you want to look at, and you can track these are ADA codes that you can actually enter into your Dendrix or Open Dental, EagleSoft, etc., is this, you know, we use the CA canceled, the BA broken appointment. A broken appointment is when somebody doesn't give you appropriate notice and when they no-show. Canceled is when they have the CA, cancel, I said I wouldn't say that word anymore, but the CA change. That's for when somebody has called and said, oh, next week I can't come in. You know, how many times does your front office get on the phone all day long? How many times, how many hours are they spending filling those holes? That's costing you a lot more money than just the open hole. And then you always want to track in the patient's record at least that the patient was late for their appointment. So I wanted to share with you, this is the tracking system that we use. It's called Denometrics, and you can see here that we're picking this up. This just happens to be from Dendrix, that we're picking up the broken appointments, so the people in the office marked it as broken because they gave 24 hours notice. I consider 48 hours notice not enough. It is not enough time. I mean, people have their iPhone and their Droid calendars all scheduled out. So there's no excuse why you don't know what you're doing next week. So, and we're getting text messages. You know, we're able to send out text message reminders 4 weeks, 2 weeks in advance so we can look at our calendar before we hit accept that appointment and know. And hopefully you plan around your dental appointments and you presented the opportunities for your patients to feel like their dental appointment, their hygiene appointment in particular, is very important because their hygiene appointment is going to help them live a longer, healthier life. So here's just another one of the monitors that we have. We're looking at your active patients, the recare status. You know, how many patients have never even been to see the hygienist? They came in as a new patient or an emergency, but they never had a hygiene appointment. So we can monitor, track this, and tweak it. Case acceptance, the same thing. What has been accepted and not scheduled or paid for. And I just wanted to say that it's all about these systems, these KPIs that you're tracking, and really pay attention to your patients' behaviors, because people value what you do and how you respond to their behaviors. And there are people who don't value behaviors, and how you respond really matters. And I'm not talking about judgment, but it's about knowing and really understanding the different values of your individual patients. And one of the things that I like to talk about, and I teach it with our clients, is that when I see a lot of transition in dental offices. Probably you can all agree. You know, some employees will stay forever, but there are always employees that are in and out of jobs. And it's very helpful to, in that morning team huddle, when you have somebody new, to let other team members know about the different types of patients. So I've categorized your patients into A, B, or C, and this is another system that you could set up, where patient A is somebody who goes with the flow, and you can have this where you're categorizing actually on the patient record. You have an A, and anybody who comes to your office knows this is somebody who always calls you if they need to change their appointment. If they're running late, they're going to call you. They pay when they come. And then there's patient B, where they have a few times that they didn't follow your rules for your practice and your policies. And then you have patient C. Those are the people, I call them the people that march to the beat of their own drum. So the message that I'm giving here is to create a system so that you can document and categorize your patients, so you understand their behaviors, you understand their values, and you can speak to that. Just like when I go back to that show, the movie that I watched, Arrival, it's understanding the behavior of the aliens and the aliens understanding our behavior. Going back to that movie, Arrival, you know, the people who had the UFO over in China, they understood that the aliens were saying weapons, but the wanted to just say that the weapons wasn't meaning that they were terrorists going to use weapons. They were there on Earth to create peace. And I wanted to just share with you, it's important that you understand your patients and allow them to understand you.
Okay, one of the things that I like to do, speaking of understanding patients, is for the last 5 or 6 years especially, I've been slowing down a bit, and I've been thinking more about the patients, and I've really enjoyed challenges to take on people who were C patients and just see if I can turn them into A patients. You know, I can easily turn a B patient into an A patient. I'm working hard to get the C's. Now, you take the ones who just don't seem interested, that don't seem focused, or they don't seem to respect you, and I just kind of play with them. And I use some of the psychology and some of the um, persuasive tactics that we teach in our mastermind. How do you get people to turn around and really become an A patient? And there are a few techniques that work well. So I thought it was interesting you showed the ABC, which we've always broken our patients down into.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can take the one that nobody else wants and make them likable, that's a challenge. And I don't always succeed, I have to tell you.
I remember they would always pawn, when I was a hygienist in Newport Beach, we had some patients who just brought it to my mind that were C's. And they were difficult to work on too, so I was loved, they gave them to me. They would put them on my schedule. I do have a lot of patience, you know, and after a while I said, come on guys, you got to get them back on your schedule, you know, because it was, I mean, the one guy didn't ever change. You know, he just wasn't. I mean, there was a disability that he was not going to change. But yeah, and we could do a whole webinar on that, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I know you could take one disability like a gagging patient that nobody wanted to treat, and I just told him I could treat you. And he stayed with me for 15 years, and every time he came in, you know, he was going to just, it'd touch him, he'd gag, but we got through it, and he was a great patient.
Yeah. Now here's another system for you. So this is something that I teach with our clients, and it's an acronym that I created. It's PARP. It's Patient Appointment Return Value and Benefit. It's the patient needs to always have an appointment. Nobody leaves your office without a next appointment, but they need to understand the value and benefits for them returning, and it's also us understanding what is valuable to our patient and then speaking to that value. So one thing I wanted to mention is we need to remember that everything that we do for our patients is about a benefit to them. Even if they don't have money, how is that treatment going to benefit them in the future? They're saying they don't have money. They're asking how much their insurance costs, and they don't want to pay for it. So what is the benefit? Bill, you're doing a lot of implants this week at your office. Thousands of dollars in implants. I mean, what are the benefits that the patients understood that you're able to do so many of these implants?
The number one reason is we don't have to cut down the good tooth next to the space that they're trying to replace a tooth. That's the number one reason people do implants nowadays. Number two is to chew better, because they just, you know, they don't want a partial denture, they don't want removable. So the benefits are more natural, more healthy.
And for those patients who are automatically healthy, I mean, I have never had any decay, knock on wood, for, gosh, 40 years, and I don't have periodontal disease. So what is the benefit for me going to see the hygienist every 6 months? I mean, how can a hygienist speak to that?
Well, oral cancer is something that you can't always predict and see or feel, so it's good to get somebody to look for it.
In my eyes, my benefit to myself, what I tell myself, is that my mom had heart problems, which ended up, she ended up dying from that heart problem. And high cholesterol and diabetes, you know, these are all systemic issues that basically my cardiologist said it probably started with the mouth. And I highly recommend that all hygienists are letting their patients know that we're in the business of helping our patients not only have a more beautiful smile, but to live a longer and a healthier life. That's a benefit that I always share with hygienists to mention to their patients.
Yeah, if you look at what's out there in the public's mind and all the drug commercials about every disease imaginable being treated with drugs, they are very tuned in on oral health being connected to the body if the dental hygienist promotes it. And it'll keep people on their regular hygiene appointments. It'll keep them regular at the dental office if they connect the medical to the dental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think as we're not 30 years old anymore, and it means a lot to us to remain healthy. And this is a lady, I'm just using her as an example, but Mrs. Mary Jane Kaufman. She has decay on the lower left molar, and for those of you in the United States listening, that's tooth number 19. And the doctor diagnosed a composite due to new decay around an old amalgam. The patient, she wants to save money, and what they're talking to her about is that if she can do this sooner than later, they can save her the cost of doing a root canal, doing a crown, having an extraction and an implant, that she can have a beautiful tooth-colored filling that nobody will even notice. So this information, that these words I just stated, actually become part of Mary Jane's patient record. That goes in the record. And then, so you have the chart notes, and this is the hygienist, if they're seeing the hygienist and the hygienist is talking to Mary Jane about this, your notes will say decay lower left, decay number 19, needs a composite due to new decay around the old amalgam. You'll write that description out, and then the last part of this patient record says PARP, and it's where the patient wants, we're writing notes, it's the value and benefit to her. Her value is she wants to save money. And so we talked to her that it could be that in the future she needs a root canal, a crown, maybe an implant. I didn't write that in the notes there, but you could. And that this number 19 left molar needs a composite. The patient knows that completing this treatment will save her money having a root canal or a crown or an implant if the decay is not treated sooner than later. The patient wants to talk to her husband to see if they can complete this sooner than later. They offered her lending club, and she does qualify, but before incurring these charges, she wants to talk to her husband first. So the patient left without a next appointment. What do we do? Well, the front office is going to mark this down that they will follow up with Mary Jane, and they'll tell Mary Jane, I'm going to call you. Let's say today's Tuesday, of course. I'm going to call you on Thursday if I don't hear from you. Is that okay, Mary Jane? And of course, Mary Jane's going to say, hopefully, yes. And what would be a good time? And she'll say, can you call me towards the end of the day, like 4:30? They'll give me time to talk to my husband about it. And so the lady at the front desk calls Mary Jane back, and she's like, you know, doctor is very concerned because you didn't schedule this, and we had a chance to talk, and he is actually concerned that if we don't get this scheduled, it could cause a toothache. And you know how that goes, like Murphy's Law, it's going to happen over the weekend, but I know money's a concern, so we've got you approved for 0% on the lending club. We'd like to get you scheduled for next Wednesday. Will that work for you? What do you
That's
think happens?
beautiful. You know, that was great because you combined their hot button, what really motivates them, and have them remembering the pain. So if you connect the pain to the hot button, the motivator, people will usually say yes. That's one of the techniques that you wouldn't always use is combinations of motivating statements. It's a good job.
Thanks. Well, I knew that money was a concern for her. She's, you know, they're getting ready to retire. So, you know, we put that number one is that we were talking to her about her value, first of all. The first thing that does happen when you're following up, and even if a patient calls to change their appointment, you're always going to put them on a short hold and just say, Mrs. or Mary Jane, I'm going to put you on a short hold, and I know that you need to change your appointment. Let me just talk to doctor for a second about this. You look at their chart, you can come back and let them know I talked to Dr. Williams, and he's very concerned because that area was bleeding. It seems to have some infection. We're worried that it could cause you some pain this weekend if it's not fixed. So I always want to recommend that you put that patient on a short hold and look back at this PARP. You're always referring back to it. And when somebody, if you have people in your office that are calling to get patients back for hygiene appointments, it's very helpful if you have this PARVB at the end of the chart notes, so whoever's calling those patients can look back and see why do they need to come in. Nobody's going to come back to the office just because it's a cleaning. People don't find getting their teeth cleaned important, but they do find it important to live a longer, healthier life and to not have pain. This is our second patient, and he's only 30 years old. Let's see what I call him. Blake Humphries is what I named him. He's a plumber, and he has dental insurance from his employer. He has a low EQ. Bill, you love talking about EQ. And he also has a low dental IQ. He's never had any decay and no perio. So what do we say to him when he has no clue about the oral health, systemic health link, and he only thinks he's coming in to get his teeth cleaned? Any suggestions on what to say to him?
You need it, buddy.
Yeah, does
Just
he
do it.
look like somebody who's going to come in? Oh, it's not important to him, you know.
If he's wearing Nikes, just tell him to just do it.
And he's probably wearing Nikes and carrying with him a $600 iPhone and a sleeve of tattoos up his arm. So, it's, trying to find out what is his value, what is important to him. And what we found out about Blake is that he wants to keep his good looks. He's interested in finding Mrs. Humphrey. And so in order to look good, he's got to have not only white teeth, but he has to have teeth, and if he doesn't come in every 6 months, the likelihood of having gum disease is what we have to say to him, gum disease rather than periodontal disease. It's highly likely in the next few years that he could develop some periodontal disease. He only has, light plaque and light calculus with very little bleeding. So he's pretty much healthy, but it's just a continual conversation to Blake about keeping his teeth healthy, about having that beautiful smile in 10 years. So in the PARP notes, the hygienist wrote down that the patient doesn't like coming to the dental office, but comes every 6 months for the hygiene appointments. We are writing down that he feels good about his appearance, and the hygienist has reinforced the routine hygiene appointments to keep him looking young, and that his teeth will keep that youthful appearance. That's the number one value point for Blake. His hot button is continuing those good looks. And we keep talking to him about the oral health and the systemic health connection. He doesn't seem too concerned about it right now at 30 years of age, but I think at this point in age, we need to keep talking about how he can keep his youthful looks. Any comments on that from the cheering section there?
Youthful looks are important, even when you're 66.
Yes, they are. So what words will you use for Blake continuing to come in for his appointment? It's not just a good reason to tell Blake or any of your patients that they're returning for a cleaning. I want you to nix that word, cleaning teeth. Clean teeth, they're not a motivational factor for patients. And it's just, cleaning teeth to me is like getting your nails done, getting a massage or a haircut. And what we do as hygienists is so much more important. Like I keep saying, we're in the business of creating healthier and longer lives. So you have to create a reason for your patient to return, and you put that in your chart notes. And then upon dismissing the patient at the front office, again, you repeat the value and the benefit statement. So let's say that Blake calls to change his hygiene appointment in a month. So we've got 5 months before he's even due for his next hygiene appointment. What do you do when he calls to change his appointment? I've seen it. I've been in offices. It was my first day observing, and I actually observed that they actually clicked on their Dendrix, and they just decided that they were going to take them off the schedule. And it's very important that you put them on that short hold, and that you're going to actually mark it down if it's tomorrow that they're changing their appointment for. It is a broken appointment, and it's important that you look at the PARP. It's very important, again, that we're recognizing their behaviors and how we're responding to their behaviors. So it's important that we're saying Blake will return. When we're dismissing the patient, it's Blake will be returning for his hygiene appointment or his preventive care appointment and a doctor exam or an exam by doctor. That's what you're going to be saying at the front upon dismissal, and it's what your patient's it's going to stick in their head that they're not coming back for a cleaning.
Yeah, the point that you're making is that we're actually doing a change in mindset. And that's one of the key points that we bring up in the mastermind, is that doctors have to change their mindset if they're going to grow. Patients have to change their mindset by what we do if they're going to succeed in not breaking appointments. Because it really takes a change in mindset for them to value the appointment much more than they had in the past.
And I think that what you just said about mindset is so valuable, because that mindset like you're working with the doctors in the mastermind, the first module is on mindset. And that's what needs to happen when they first come to your office as a new patient, is that they understand, you kind of like reframe their mindset with what are your policies, what is your expectation when they're there as a patient. And that's
Yeah,
what
if I can say if I can say the word brainwash, you know, when you brainwash, you think of doing something bad to people, but if we need to brainwash our patients, we need to wash out their brain of the bad stuff and put in the good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and it starts from day one. And that's what you're doing with the mastermind now that you mention it. So let's talk about that phone call that you guys are dealing with all day, every day. And that's why you're here on this call, is when a patient calls to change their appointment, you're always going to tell them that I'm going to put you on a short hold, Mary Jane. I just want to check something in your patient record, and then go get their chart, whether it's electronic or paper, and now you can look at the PARP, and you're going to look at that value and benefit statement for keeping the appointment. It's just 30 seconds max that they're on hold while you check that last sentence in your chart notes. And when taking that change of appointment call, the person who's listening to the patient on the phone, their job is to support the patient in keeping their valuable dental appointment. So really important is to nix that word cancellation. This is a new system. Like Bill said, we're going to change our mindset, and it's now a change of appointment. So I'm discouraging you from using the word cleaning or cancellation. So here's what you say when the patient calls your office. Say, for example, the patient is James. James, I know you want to change your appointment. However, Dr. Williams and our hygienist Susan are both very concerned because when you were here 3 months ago, you had bleeding on the lower right around your molars, and just 2 years ago, I see that you completed that periodontal therapy. You came in, remember you came in about 4 times, and because you have periodontal disease, we did that treatment. You've been coming in every 3 months. And I know you're also concerned about your family history of diabetes. We've talked about that when you were here last time. And all of this is related to these conditions with your oral health. And I'm looking here at our schedule, and it's going to be another 6 weeks before we can see you. James, is there any way you can rearrange your schedule to be here on Friday? Just pause. Listen to what they answer with, and then ask them again, is it possible to make it on Friday at your scheduled time if they didn't respond positively? Never let them know that you can get them in tomorrow or even next week. I was talking to Dr. Bill before we started the webinar. I was sharing with him about the office where I was a hygienist in Newport Beach, and even back then it was just so much stress for the patients, because if they had to cancel, God forbid they had the flu, they felt so stressed that they couldn't come in for their hygiene appointment, knowing that they couldn't get on the schedule for another 9 months. Or if there was a change in the appointments that day, we'd call and let them know we've had a last minute change. You come in. Now, somebody asked a question about the dialogue, and I feel that it's so important to communicate with our patients. And Bill and I, as we're working together with our clients, we communicate a lot. And, you know, we had a new pastor at our church last year, and he said he got all of the church members together, and we all met about a year ago in the foyer, and he said, I want to have time with all of you because there's been so much stress over the change in this church. And I believe that there's never too much communication. I believe that you can never communicate too much. And I'm here tonight to let you know what is happening in this church. Does anybody disagree with that? Can you disagree with too much communication?
I can sure say that there's often not enough communication, so too much is not very likely.
And I think it's only like a 30-second statement that we're talking to the patient about concerns. What we know is a benefit to them. We're always going to talk about benefit. And there is a lot of benefit for this patient keeping her appointment. It's so important. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the doctor calls. Because when the doctor calls, it really screams, I care. And I wanted to just talk about that a little bit. I know I'm probably, stressing some of you doctors out by saying that because you are busy. But, not that many people answer their phones anymore. And when you call, I always have to convince our doctors that they need to call all new patients before they come into the office that day. Welcome them. And the first time one of my doctors who was hesitant to do this, when he called a young lady who was a new patient on his schedule that week, ironically, she was extremely fearful of going to a dental office. And what an amazing positive benefit that had for her, that she met the doctor before she even stepped foot in the office and she got to talk to him. How amazing is that? And I also recommend that if somebody gets a local anesthetic or especially sedation, you always are calling that patient. You can even text that patient. But this really screams that you care. And people do not know how great a dentist you are. They only know how you make them feel. And people want to know that you care. So what do you say to those chronic abusers, people who are always calling, changing their appointments last minute, who don't show up? When John calls for the third time in 2 or 3 months, it's like, wow, John, it seems like this has happened more than once in the last 2 months. And by the way, we put him on a short hold. Probably didn't the lady answering the phone didn't remember this right away, or maybe she did. But then pause and listen to them, and listen for what they're going to say next. And then you'll respond according to that. But they might say, hey, I can't help it. My work, they just are pushing me to work really hard this year. Let them know next. And instead of reserving another hour for you, what I can do is add you to our same-day call list. And this means, and now you'll explain to them what that means, that we will call you when we have a last-minute opening versus scheduling this. You can also ask them to pay a non-refundable deposit, too, for those patients who are chronic abusers of your change of appointment schedule. What do you guys do for that, Dr. Bill, at your office?
We do have the same-day call list. That's a very big one, and we use it, and I believe in that. We've gone back and forth as far as charging people for the broken appointment. And we tried it sometimes, and we went away from it and tried it. It's never an ideal situation on that.
If somebody's calling within 2 months and it's the second or third time that they're doing that, I just feel like it's so disrespectful. And by telling them this sentence, instead of reserving another hour for you, what we'll do is put you on our same-day call list, you're blacklisting them, and people don't want to be blacklisted. And it's also a nice way, I think it's a diplomatic way to say, hey, buddy, you're not reliable. And you're letting
don't measure up to our standards is what it means.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, James, can you make your appointment? And see what they say. And this is just very simple. It's another system to put in place. And it's especially much easier if you have this system in place. And for the doctor that was asking, if some of this is too much to say to the patient, practice it. And I always suggest to our clients, try it for at least 3 weeks each day and see how that feels. How is that going? Is that helping? Okay.
Well, it might make you $1,000 a week or $1,000 a day if you say it right.
We're getting a lot of questions, Bill, a lot of interaction, and I'll get to the questions at the very end because we're running a little bit behind. So I want to suggest that you use text and emails to your advantage. They're available. You can do that from Dendrix. I love Solution Reach, and I highly recommend it. They have so many benefits to the doctor using that system. But know how your patients want to be contacted. Most people don't even answer their phone. And I know many people who never listen to their voicemails, and I personally appreciate a text message when I just got a text message while I was sitting here from my acupuncturist. I have an acupuncture appointment, and while I was sitting here, it popped up that they're reminding me of my appointment. So imagine that. It's so easy when you do it that way. I just want to highly recommend that you always automate all your systems. So use that automated appointment confirmation system. If you don't have one, you really need to have one. We're in the 21st century. Your voicemail needs to say that we do not accept voice messages to change an appointment. Please don't leave a message to change an appointment. Should you need to change your appointment, please call us during normal business hours. If this is urgent that you change your scheduled appointment, please call doctor's cell number at. I have never heard of a client who they never told me that the patients were calling their cell phone, because usually the cell phone, or the voicemail is a scapegoat for patients to call and not show up for their appointment tomorrow or on Monday when they do this over the weekend. So this I recommend highly, and it works. So the number one system is that we have our clients engaged in. This is what I'm going to tell you right now. It works, and I'm going to share with you in a minute. It eliminates appointment changes, last minute, and appointment changes, in particular, any changes. It increases your new patient numbers, and it keeps your patients returning to your office. And this is our Lifetime Smiles program. And I highly recommend that you have an incentive program for your patients. It gives them another reason, a value, and a benefit to come to your office. They will rave. They'll be your raving fans. They'll engage with you online, on your Facebook, on your Yelp. They're going to write nice things about you. They're going to love you, because every 6 months when they come to their appointment on time, they get a free syringe. And you'll see on the handout that we are able to get this at a discount. It's from the same person that you're probably buying from now. It's a 3 milliliter syringe. We also have the pens. We have a lot of the supplies at discount, and it's coming from the same address that you're probably, many of you are ordering from today. Everything, remember, everything that you're doing must have a benefit for your patient. So talk to them about that. And very important to have a re-care system. As I'm reviewing our clients right now who are enrolling in our 5M Mastermind series, I'm doing the team training. They're sending in their responses to me. And some of the team members in the same office think there's a re-care system, and others say no, they don't have one. So it's something that everybody in the office needs to know you have. And the doctor in particular, the number one offender, I called you guys out, but hey, everybody needs to adhere to that. So make sure the whole team knows about that, and it's a written system that's in place. Always mark your calendar to follow up with patients who leave without scheduling a next appointment. Every patient that leaves your front door needs to have a next appointment. And this is the place where we're actually helping our clients to close the back door, because we are monitoring this each week, and we're helping them get systems in place. So I've seen offices when we first start working with them and we're getting their numbers coming in, their KPI, and I'm doing observation in the office. We had one office, they had patients walk out the door in 1 week of over $25,000 in unscheduled treatment. So it's important to keep that back door closed and always keep looking at your numbers. I hope that these tips have been very helpful for you. I really want you to use the pages of these notes with the information that I've given you tonight. And these are systems that you should have in place in your office. They're systems that you need to be looking at and monitoring on a regular basis. If they're not going the way you want and need them to be going, you need to tweak them. So use these tools that you received tonight to keep the holes in your schedule full, because holes in your schedule have a negative impact on your business. And if you're an employee listening to this, I want you to know that eventually, if these holes continue, it affects your paycheck. And it also it affects your patients, because it causes pain when they have untreated restorations, decay that progresses. It costs your patients more money to have these restorations completed when they don't come back when they're supposed to. And it just causes more time for them in your office, which I know not everybody wants to be sitting in a dental chair for hours and hours. So even worse than that is if your patients aren't coming back and they're going to the office down the street. Having these holes in your schedule, it actually causes all of us so much work, including your patients. So what is next? All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and we're going to get to your questions in just a moment. If you want more great information like this, maybe you have questions. I saw that some of you do have questions. We're going to get to those. Some of you want to get your hygiene department to produce more. You want your team to have systems, and maybe you have an overhead that's out of control. Maybe you want to know how these other doctors in the 5M Mastermind are producing upwards of $900,000 this year without working as many days. So please don't hesitate to contact myself and Dr. Bill. And maybe you just want to get some extra training, and we're available for that. Possibly you don't have an annual plan, and without a plan for 2017, I believe that you have planned to fail. So I'm sending you a personal invitation, and here's the link to an annual planning session, and we're going to work on your hygiene department as well, creating all these systems. And we have an early bird special until next Monday. So the more people in your office that come, the less money it costs you. I'll be in Portland, Oregon on January 6th, and Los Alamitos, it's the LA area of California, on January 13th. I wanted to also invite you to join the 5M Mastermind and belong to an elite group. We are enrolling an elite group of doctors. I mean, they're going, in my motto for 2017, Bill, did I tell you it's go big or go home?
Go home. I like it.
Yeah.
We have room for 9 doctors at the table, and you're pretty elite if you're sitting at that table.
But I'm working with the teams, and I love what I do. We're having a great time, and I'm touching the team every week that Dr. Bill's working with the doctors on, and the doctors are involved with me too. But I'm there holding the team. I'm holding their feet to the fire, but we're also having fun. And
yeah, we found that the doctors wanted a team advocate as part of our training, and so that's why Debbie and I actually hooked up together to have a doctor advocate at the mastermind and a team advocate back home at the office.
And then here's what they're getting from me is both of us have video modules that the whole entire team is enrolled in. In fact, our doctors are meeting with their team every week, Bill. They're meeting now and reviewing our video modules. We have a step-by-step curriculum. Mine's over a 6-month period of time. And then with Dr. Bill and the 5M, the doctors and the team have video modules for 12 months. But everything that we do is team. Now it's really team focused. So the doctor comes to work and does what they enjoy, which is they're being a clinician, and then their team is driving the practice. So with the program, they also get 2 in-office consults. They're a day and a half each. They get monthly coaching calls. I meet with the doctor. We go over the KPIs. Like I showed you earlier, there's actually 14 pages of KPIs. So we're looking at a lot of these numbers in a deep way so that we can tweak these areas. And usually the doctor and I will pick 3 areas for the month that we'll work on tweaking and improving on. So the offices have access to these video modules 24/7. And Bill, you want to share the results that they've been having?
Yeah, when I had the guys this year that were in the mastermind, they all came in January, and they started out, and by April, they had all had their best month ever in their whole careers, and a number of them have been in practice 40 years, a number of 45, 30 years, some were fairly new in dentistry, 20 years. And they all had their best month ever. So that's, 12 months times 40 years, that's a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole lot of months.
I'm
And
trying.
they did the best.
I'm trying to.
after having just listened to one or two different lectures we gave and implement a couple of tactics. So it's all about tactics.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, for those doctors that want to know more about the tactics, we have a 5M webinar series that we did, just ended on November 1st. So email us at support@dentalpracticesolutions.com and we can send you those tactics that we're talking about. This is the 5M Mastermind. This is on Bill's end. You're going to his house. I'll let you explain it, Bill.
Yeah, if you come to Swanee, Georgia, and you stay in my house, you attend the lectures, and you sit in the hot seat. And the whole key to the thing is, if you have a practice that you want to improve, you got to put it on the hot seat and cook it a while, and let all the other doctors in the room give advice and give their suggestions, and then I'll take notes and I'll write a prescription on the board, and we actually figure out what it is you need to do till the next meeting, and everybody goes and comes away with a prescription, and it's just a magical formula. And if you've never been through a mastermind that's done that way with a group leader, it's much more than anything you've ever done in dentistry.
So let's see. And then this is, I did talk a little bit about this. What is included on my end is meeting with the office and the doctor. It's twice a month. I check in with the teams every week, basically, usually office managers. We have leaders. We have a clinical lead, a hygiene lead, and then the office manager is a lead for the whole office. So you can actually apply for it. You can talk to us by going to, there's a website right over in here. Let's see, solsticedentaladvisors.com/2017 is where you can apply. You can find out more about it at this website. And we're talking to doctors every week now. And yeah, it's really exciting what's going on. So one of the things that we have some questions, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And
Be glad to answer them.
yeah, so somebody is asking us, when they want to know more about the mastermind, and when they come to, where's your house located and where do they go for that?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, in the suburbs of Atlanta. You just fly into Atlanta and come out, and the first 4 people that register get to stay in my house because I have room. It's a pretty good sized house. So I've got 4 guest rooms, and we have 9 total spaces. We're here Friday, Saturday, go home Sunday. It's pretty leisurely time, but most important time you'll spend is in the hot seat where your practice is the focus. We start January 20th and 21st, first week, and then we go 4 months later, then we go another 4 months later. So it's like January, May, and September.
Great. And by the way, the doctors that are starting out in the 5M, they're already working with me. So, and I'm actually...
Yeah, as soon as you join us, you start working with our modules, and you start working with Debbie on the team training. So it's integrated, but they're separate in terms of how you can operate with the modules. You don't have to do them all at one time. You can spread them out over a whole year for me.
And then I will have already gone to some offices before they reach Dr. Bill's mastermind in January. So it's exciting to see the growth already by the time they get there. We have another question. Somebody's asking about creating value during the appointment, and it's very important that you create value in the appointments so that they don't cancel. It's not just about the change of appointment policy, and this is a really good question that this doctor brought up, because I work with our teams right away, and we have a fun exercise that we do, role playing. It was really fun, and especially these doctors who are so clinical, it's really fun to role play with them through this value add. And the value building starts out from the moment you say hello. It starts out with the way they're greeted. And that's one of the things that Dr. Bill and I were talking about, just, I think it was yesterday we were talking about it, the greeting, you know, the handshake, and everything that happens from the first hello. I mean, within 15 seconds, that value building has already started. So this doctor's really, that's really great. I really think that's wonderful that the doctor asked that question. So, do we have any more questions? Do you see any more questions, Bill, that came in? I'm
One
scrolling
thing that
through.
people are asking about is how do we do so much volume, or people ask how do you stay so busy? And one of the things that I create for the doctors in the mindset area of our training is we want to create a mindset among the patients that you're the best in town, you're the most influential dentist in town. And so we set up some systems externally outside the office that drives people to your office because they perceive that you're the best in town. And you know, you set up a magnetic attraction system where people come expecting to have a superior service. They expect uh, a more cosmetic result. And so you have to be able to deliver on what their expectations are, of course. So you have to be giving them excellent work. And then once that happens, it's a snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that people build expectation of something before they come to the office, because it makes them say yes quickly when they receive something they already expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. One of the doctors that is a client of mine, she has this website, and patients are so amazed by her website. It made me think of it because somebody on our chat line wrote that their niche is the oral systemic health. And patients who actually go to her office are expecting her to be on the leading edge, and they already expect her to treat their whole body.
It can happen, you know, if you put it out there, it can happen. You can be the expert in any area you want to, as long as you put the expectation there and get your training to deliver.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. Somebody, thank you for chatting with us and letting us know that's your niche. So your next step is to duplicate these great results, to reduce these appointment changes to basically nothing. And our client that I was just talking about, by the way, ironically, the holistic doctor, we actually did a whole training on this. It wasn't this exact webinar that I'm doing now, but we did a team training, and they're using the Lifetime Smiles. And it's really fun and exciting to watch the KPIs change on this because we tweaked it a little bit. We're monitoring it, and they basically don't have patients calling very often to change their appointments. They have so much more respect for them because they put this system in place. Very exciting.
Yeah, and you know, people like to be given something. They have a feel-good thing about you when you give something away.
Yeah, absolutely. They think you're very valuable to them. So your next step, I hope that you'll choose one of these things that you heard about tonight to implement, and I hope that some of the doctors will actually click on our link and find out more about working with us. And if you would like to schedule a time with us, you can reserve your call here. It's a bit.ly link, bit.ly/Debbie. Oh, first it starts out Bill Debbie calendar, and each word is uppercase. Bill's uppercase Debbie, and then calendar. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining us.
and we would enjoy talking to anybody who's interested in our program. And I want to invite each of you elite doctors out there. You know who you are. I want to invite you to send me a personal note, text or email, and invite yourself for a phone call, and we'll talk and chat. And I know there will be 9 elite doctors in the room with me in January, and I hope you're one of them.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm having a good time already working with them. Also, I want to personally invite everybody back. Dr. Bill and I have planned to do our next webinar. It's going to be on a Monday night, and it's December 12th, same time, same location. You're at your computer, and it's called the January Leapfrog Strategy: How You Can Better Your Best Year in 2017. So with that, I'm going to end our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, and make it a great end of the year. Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Good night.